And welcome everyone to the Between Two Wheels podcast.
Come on, you piece of let's go.
We're going to do an open first.
We're live. You ready? We're live.
It's alive. It's alive.
Do it live. We'll do it live. Do it live. Yeah, we'll do it live.
We are going to do it live. Sorry about the little mishap. Hey, a lot of problems going on here. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But 2 weeks in, we're in the second week of the Tour de France. They've already have a rest day in the books, and we're going to talk about stages 6 through 10, get us caught up on that. And the GC battle is taking place, but who outside of Slovenia and Columbia even has a chance of winning this thing? We'll go over that as well. Covid19 testing is in the books, and 4 teams got a strike against them. We will break that down, how that all is, some things that make you go, the ride of the week, and why does Flobikes, why do they feel that the Between Two Wheels podcast is a threat? We'll go over all of that. September 8, 2020. This is the Between Two Wheels podcast, episode 193. I thank you, everybody, for joining in. We got to go on Facebook Live today. There's a whole thing. Flobikes took our site down, basically. Look, was this an illegal feed? Basically, what we have here is you're able to do fair use content. You can take clips of the part of the race, and which I've done over and over. We have 193 episodes. We've done this many times. And they put a fair use strike or a copyright strike. Flobikes did for when we used on the last show, showing Sepkus and some others in the last kilometer up the climb. I did some commentary over that. And basically Flobikes said that's a fair use claim or a copyright claim. And they struck our channel, which took it down. We can't even do live feeds on there, and had to go through a contest period, which I've done before, and they're always fine. Basically, you can formulate and you can take your a legal battle right up your alley. Thanks, Eric Houston, talking about that. And what we have is a fair use claim. You can take it if you reformat the information to your own good. Look out there, Tyler Pierce, vegan cyclist. He has a video breakdown of NBC showing Froome a few years ago going down the descent. I think into Laurent, one of those we had the other day, and he does this breakaway. It's got 100 and some views. You see these all the time. We've done this over and over, and you can use those as fair use. If you reformat it, the original portion that you have, but now you have it on your side, and you change it to what it is, basically doing your own commentary over that. That's what I've done. It's fair use claim, but it struck our channel to the point where they take forever. And people use this as a weapon too. You go and you don't like something that someone says, you just fair use claim or a copyright claim. That person then has to fight it, and until they get it resolved, it takes time. So I can't even live stream there. So we're live streaming here on Facebook, and we'll do. Look, I had a little vacation, not a vacation. I drove my son up to the Northwest. He's going to college. Dropped them off up there. I watched the tour, but I didn't have a chance to do any commentary on it. So I thought we would break down. First of all, I just thought Flobikes, F you. And this is not a channel to be concerned about. Okay. First of all, second of all, it's not a good timing for all this in general. And maybe it was because I had recommended NBC over Flobikes for content and price on that exact show. Coincidental? Probably not. I don't understand. It's a very minimal amount of viewership that we have here, but thanks for restricting us a little bit. Let's get into, and if you guys want to make any commentary, comments, hope everyone can hear everything on the channel. You want to make any comments, we'll put your comments up on the screen, which we do also on YouTube. There you go. Eric Houston said, a legal battle right up your alley. I don't know if this is the kind of one I want, because I'd prefer to just be able to have the show. Okay, let's talk about, we'll do some quick recapping of this and then some commentary. Once again, quick, easy show, in and out. Then hopefully the next few days, even though I have some court and some other issues of my own, which are my job, then we'll still try to get some quick shows in here and reactions after the stage as best we can. Stage 5, we did have a show about that. It got, like I said, took down on YouTube. And I did not save the video beforehand, which I should have done. So lesson learned. Otherwise, I'd just reformat it, take that portion out, and pop it up there. Stage 5, though, was won by Wout. Julian Alaphilippe lost the lead to Adam Yates on that day. We remember that from the issue that we had with his illegal feed, much like mine, but this is a different type of feed. Stage 6, we saw Nilsson Pallas got in a break with Lusenko and ended up losing that. A little maybe over-aggressive, and Jonathan Vaughters isn't always the kindest to his riders when it has some of these issues. So Basically, he got a little aggressive on the really steep climb coming into the finish, or about 15K out, and Lutsenko just was easily able to come back up to him and then finally distance him when he had a chance. But it was a very impressive group that you had there. You had Lutsenko, Greg Van Avermaet, Jesus Herrada, and then the no GC battle behind, which you kind of thought there might be, but it didn't end up coming to fruition. Alaphilippe gets tries to get a second at the finish there. And Yates remained in yellow. Stage 7, wind day, chaos from the start. You had Bora Hansgrohe ripping the field apart. Ineos tried to rip the field apart as well. Port lost some time. Pogacar lost some time. Landa lost some time. Carapaz, he ended up flatting out of the front group. Wout decided at the last minute to sprint, and he goes ahead and takes the win. You saw an issue that maybe came back to haunt Jumbo a little bit. Sepp did a lot of work in the front, as did Bennett. And both of those guys were then not able to help out much the following day up the climb. And Sepp attributed a lot of that to just being on the front on the flat day, said that wears him out worse than a climb. It looked like he maybe had a little hunger flat as well. He'd commented that to Horner on Twitter, so maybe that was part of the issue as well. Yates remained in yellow. Coming to stage 8, we had some mountains in the Pyrenees finally. Paulus, once again, he joins the break. He decides to go straight off. I don't know if anybody saw that. He tried to do his best Lance and went off the road, but he didn't get off the bike. He gets back on. It was a lucky spot that he happened to be there. He ended up with an impressive 5th place. He had Zakarin and Nans Peters up the front. Tom's Scoynes was also up there. Zakarin would get the lead over Nans on the penultimate climb to the finish, and descended horribly. Everyone is watching this in horror. And then some people are like, hey, take it easy. It's just, I'm sorry, this is a skill set. This is something you can actually improve. I heard someone say, hey, maybe send him to the Thibaut Pinot School of Descending. Pinot was known for basically having mental breakdowns several years ago in the Tour de France, trying to take some of these descents, and not able to hold his own at all. And Zakarin looked like it was really bad. I also heard maybe it was a cycling podcast were talking about Zakarin a few years ago. The team sent when he was with Katusha, sent a rider up the front just to help him get off the front, and so that he would be able to help nurse Zakarin down on one of the climbs. They still lose like 10 minutes. It's pretty bad. Nans Peters, maybe there's a translation thing, but he said he wasn't too fearful when he saw Zakarin descending like a goat. Is that a good or a bad thing? I think he just means it looked like he was running downhill on high heels, because that's kind of what the goat's doing. Zakarin couldn't go downhill well. Like I said, Paulus was an impressive 5th on that day. Did have a GC battle up the climb. Sepp Kuss got blown out before he even got a chance when Wout Poels was on the front. Then Tom Dumoulin said, hey, he radioed to his team and said, I'm not feeling well. I'm going to do what I can. He goes to the front, kind of explodes the group. Pogacar attacks, they distance Bernal. Roglic goes up to him. Pogacar attacks again. No one wants to go with him, and he sets a torrid time up the Parasword, which I think he ended up putting 55 seconds or so into everybody, and also I think the fastest time that they've really had up the Parasword. Pogacar was hugely impressive. What you didn't have though was Roglic or anybody going with him, and I think that could come back. And maybe that's none of the riders really had a member up there. I think Port was up there, maybe with Malema, but those two guys are more like hanging on rather than supporting each other. Bernal did not look like he was in good spot. Matter of fact, they kept distancing him, and I think that might come back to haunt as he just is going to get better and better. And you saw the following day as well. Yates held tough. He got distance as well, but was able to come up because they just kept letting Pogacar going up the road. And Roglic looked very well on that one as well. So you have the GC shaping out with Yates, Roglic, and Martin. Pogacar got some time over everybody, kind of that he had lost in the windy days. He ends up being able to bring some of that back, and that a little bit of positive for him. Then go in stage 9, and I think you saw the ability of Jumbo being able to kind of reassess themselves. They put Sepp Kuss on the front a little earlier to make sure that he was still able to do some work. Let's first talk about Dumoulin on that. So I even saw Kreuzwick, his teammate who didn't make the tour because he was injured, said, I think it was unnecessary what he did. It's hard to kind of break down what teams are doing as far as their strategy. And I don't think the team planned on doing that. I don't know that Tom needed to go to the front and pepper everyone as he did. It narrowed the group down and blew him out. He ends up losing 2 minutes. Why not just sit in there? Was there a need for him to, at that time, to try to explode everybody up? I don't think so. So maybe it was a little bit of bad timing for him, but he essentially takes himself out of the running. He ends up doing similar work on stage 9 as well, which was helpful. That climb up the Mary Blanc was so steep. It was short for tour climbs, 5-6K or so, but it was really steep. I saw Mark Hershey of Sunweb. We had seen him in stage 2 lose narrowly to Julian Alaphilippe. He ends up taking a flyer around 80K, and he's soloing out there, looking very strong, former under 23 world champion. And behind, like I said, Sepp rebounded. He was able to do some good work for Roglic. He had Pogacar, Roglic, Bernal. Bernal, he also rebounded, and he was able to do some attacks. But Landa, Roglic, Bernal, Landa, Roglic, and Pogacar were all able to stay with him. A little bit of distance on group behind. Yates lost a bunch of time, but Uran, Martin, Bardet, Nairo, they all fared well, but not quite as good. Over the top, there was a time bonus, which the first one was taken by Hirsch, who was up the road with him. He had a little bit over a minute going into that. And then you had Roglic and Pogacar sprinting out for the time bonus at the top, which you ended up seeing almost Pogacar going into the barriers with a crossed wheel with Roglic. All good there. It looked like he just was looking the wrong direction. Both, but if you took into that and you saw that finish, which Hirsch couldn't because he's up the road, you saw those two guys both had a kick. And, look, with this 20-some or 15, 20K descent down into the finish there, it's not quite the same racing to the top of the Col de Mont Blanc as you would normally see, but you were able to say, hey, these guys both had a kick. And then you have this harrowing descent, which it was really interesting to watch Hirsch go down, especially comparing it to the day before with Zakarin, just bombing the descent, coming into these corners super hot, being able to hold his lines and doing just fine. But eventually the group of 4 were too much. They ended up overtook him in about 3K to go. Hirsch comes in, sits on, and you're like, okay, look, Hirsch can sprint well. It's a good strategy, trying to get off the front. But at some point, you just sit up, let these guys catch you, sit on, let them hammer because they're trying to take time on the GC, and then sprint. So he does that, tightening his shoes, Hirsch, and with the problem you sat. And I think, look, everyone's learning. You're taking into account what you've done previously. Stage 2, you saw him with Julian Alaphilippe coming on very late and almost getting him at the line. It was a bike throw, and he was boom, 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 another 10 meters or so. He would have probably had the win. So he's thinking of this. I need to go early. These guys are, GC guys are crushed from behind. The little climbers. I'm going to take them. And he launches his sprint around 200 meters. He opens it up, but Pogacar and Roglic close him down. Both of them, Pogacar gets the win, gets to post up, and Roglic gets him as well. A little bit of a crush for Hirsch, but also one where, once again, he learned from the Julian Alaphilippe, but he overcooked it by trying to go too early. That is not a situation. I think he needed to react to those guys rather than be the reactionary himself and instigate that sprint. Bummer for him, but you get a Slovenian. Pogacar gets his first win. And I think Roglic had won coming down the hill on 2018 in that same town. So a little Slovenian conglomeration there. Behind, like I said, Yates blows. So now you have Roglic in yellow. Pogacar is up there. Port, Martin. It's all a good one. Yates and Chavez. Chavez has been distancing himself. So, but Roglic in first place at this point. Stage 10. We had stage 10 today. A little bit different. I think I'm going to play here Jonathan Scriven, just what he had said in our preview show, and get a little indication of what he said of the preview for this stage. Hang on.
But I do know that it's Pau to Laurent.
Okay. So that's stage 9. Then we have a rest day out there. And then we go to stage 10, which looks like unintelligible. You can't pronounce that. What is it? What are they doing with these words?
The Ile de Oloron. So the next 3 stages are all stages where I haven't spent a lot of time. Okay. But this is to give you sort of the lay of the land. This is that typical Western. It's in the Bordeaux region. It's very, very flat.
Right. Okay? Well, look at the stage profile there.
Okay, I see it now. Again, there's 2 things that stick out to me if this is in July. One is heat, okay, which I don't think we're going to get, and the second is wind. And so you have sort of 3 stages in a row where those are the main features. I think you go into a place called Poitiers, and there are some rolling hills in Poitiers. I've been to Poitiers, but you're talking about essentially 3 days where I don't know if it's sort of like catch your breath, or if it's breakaways, or what have you. But they should be relatively uneventful. You can see up there in the west where we are now in the.
Yeah, that's quite the transfer that they. All right, so we had a little. He started going into stages 12 and 13, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But the point really there is the wind, which you can expect up the coast, and exactly what we saw today. The teams were concerned about that. There were a lot of traffic islands, so you ended up with at least four separate crashes along the way. We had crashes at Paulus. I saw him go down. It wasn't his fault. It looked like a guy who was near the right side. There's a rider on his right, and just the guy domino effect crashed into him. So we'll see how he does. I think Nairo went down, Guillaume Martin went down, Lopez, Pogacar, they all went down at one point. All of them were able to regain. It looked like the field really split. You're looking at about 25 or so K to go. They're taking a different direction. It had been block headwind. Now they're coming into a cross. And what you saw first was Ineos looking to gutter everybody. And they go up on the left-hand side as a crosswind, and it's getting guttered. And then Jumbo comes up there, and they do a little more sympathetic move where instead of the wind coming from the right and they're all congregated on the left side of the road, Jumbo actually moves to the right side of the road and creates a little bit more space. And then you've got to have, and it slowed things down a little bit, and then took some other turns. And you ended up seeing Guillaume Martin come back up to the front. You saw Lopez coming back and Pogacar. I think they'd all gone down at that situation. And then you're coming into the sprint, Wout Poels is pulling, and it looks like 3K to go. He brings Roglic into the 3K. Everything's safe. And typically, at least the last few days, you're like, oh, well, he'll just sit on the front and win. But he decided to drift back. As it was, Sunweb comes to the front with I don't know who they're leading out, because the last guy takes a little bit of not a flyer, but he's doing the sprint outside of 300 meters to go, and there's no one behind him. So I don't know if Case Bowles got squashed somewhere, but they had a good lead out up until that point. And then it was a little bit more of a minimized lead out with Sam Bennett on a teammate's wheel. Caleb Ewing looking great there on a third wheel behind Sam Bennett. And then you had Sagan looking fourth place. And as it was, the only thing that changed was the lead rider. Lead rider splits off. He gets in the way of Caleb Ewing. Ewing has to go around. I'll show you the clip, but afraid to get in trouble with that. And Caleb Ewing ends up coming around, and at the end, he could not come around Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett gets the win. It's somewhat of not a bike throw, but it was fairly close, half wheel there. And Peter Sagan in third place. As it is, I think Bennett then takes the green jersey. He, finally, Sagan looked to be able to hold a wheel on a sprint instead of getting like top 10. He was somewhat close to those two guys. Caleb just was never able to fire it up, and Sam Bennett was quite emotional, crying. Irishman narrowly wins over Caleb, and Sagan, GC change unchanged with Roglic in first place, Bernal in second at 21 seconds. And like I said, I think let's go through the finish here. Guillaume Martin, 28, Romain Bardet, 30 seconds, Quintana at 32, Iran at 32, Pogacar, 44, Yates at 102, Lopez at 115, and Mikel Landa at 142. So Landa lost a bunch of that time on the wind day. Pogacar lost some time that day as well, but he took about half of that back. Yates ends up, losing a minute too, and we'll talk a little bit of story about why maybe he's not doing so great. But I think you saw Bernal was suffering. He was 2 or 3 times he was coming off the wheels on stage 8, not being able to close those down. And Roglic, instead of doing what he could to maybe distance him, now there's a long stretch over the top and he didn't have teammates with him. Maybe that was his concern, wasting his energy there. Could be. But what you saw the very next day was a similar situation, but this time Bernal was on the attack and he had obviously come good, and you're only going to see him getting better. You saw that last year in the Tour, and then the stages up in the Alps are going to be at really high elevation. Him being from Columbia, that usually seems to suit him well. COVID-19 testing. So they're doing this thing where it was a 2 strikes rule that the Tour has implemented. Well, that was their idea to begin with. They got a lot of pushback. With that pushback was two people on your team test positive, includes staff members. We're going to kick them out, and the whole team. Okay. Teams push back against that. The UCI is like, oh, okay, well, it'll just be 2 riders. But then the French government said, nope, it's going to be that way, and that's the way it's going to be. And so therefore they're back to that. And basically, I think some teams have been doing some testing themselves, but they did a big slew of tests on the rest day and leading up to it, and all the teams were going to be tested. It was kind of this big breakdown. Now, you saw on stage 8, They're going up this big climb out in the Pyrenees. Those fans, the Basque fans, are known to be a little excessive. And you saw a bunch of people up on the mountain yelling at the riders without masks on. It was a little bit much, optics wise, for what you'd think. So I know Dave Toll, announcer, he put a tweet out of like, "Oh, you think the legal feed is going to be bad? Wait till they have all these tests coming back." Well, the tests come back today. No riders are positive, but there were 4 teams that ended up having a medical staff, or not a medical staff, but a staff member on their team test positive. AG2R had one, Ineos had one, Mitchelton Scott had one, and Copidus. Also, the tour director, Christian Prudhomme, was a positive test, and he's been sent home as well. Part of the question, though, is, first of all, I couldn't find this out. Who is doing the testing? Now, it had also been discovered that Deceuninck Quickstep thought that they might have a positive test. They took a rider or staff member back away in an ambulance, and then there's been all these false positives that have come out. So the testing procedure is they do a test. If it's a positive test, they do an additional test and an additional test. So they do 3 tests to confirm this, to make sure. And I think they had a false positive. They had ended up being they being Deceuninck Quickstep. Everything's fine with that. Question is, if you have a negative, do they do the 3 as well to make sure that it's not a false negative? I don't believe so, because they're just kind of hoping to, hey, you're negative, get out of here, run away, and we're good to go. But then the question is, who's doing the testing? Chris Flower mentioned to me, he goes, well, look, Lance tested positive a bunch, and they just kind of pushed that under the rug. Good question. I don't know if it's medical staff. They said there was a laboratory mix-up on the Deceuninck Quickstep first one. It's questionable. Is it really about, is it medical staff doing it? Is it UCI doing it? Because there's obviously some credibility issues for the UCI staff. So I don't know how really that plays into it. But also, it's just this is just a scare for all the teams. So now you have those 4 that have a one positive. Those people all sent home. I also heard that a lot of teams are bubbling within their bubble. So you have staff, ones that don't ever have to communicate and connect with the riders. Those ones are never doing anything. There's people that go out and get supplies or cooking. Those, besides that part, there's no connection with the rider. So they're really trying to keep, those bubbles. And as one of those people that are out there that got a positive, were they even connected? So it kind of sucks for the riders. You're getting a staff member. Those guys have different jobs. They have to be more out in the public. They're probably less. Well, I mean, you got someone has to go to the store and get food and do those things. Maybe a team needs a tool or something, and they're kind of a little more connected with the associated public, even though you have the riders going up the climb. I just think the way that the science is on contracting this on a climb, it could be, but if you're out on the open road, that's likely not going to happen. You're not going to be in front of this person for 10, 15 minutes. You're out in the wind, but a climb could be more. But yeah, you didn't see any positive from the riders. So you got these staff members, and it's going to really suck in that case. And so then the question is, what is the testing for? Is it testing to limit the exposure and protect the rider's health, or is it actually to limit the spread around the country? And I think it's probably limit the spread around the country. Well, if the ones that are mainly going out and doing that are the riders, they're not really, and they're not positive, they're not the problem. And then those other staff members, you're sending them home and quarantining them as soon as that happens. This is really a little more of a microcosm of what's going on in the country rather than a problem. So a little disappointed that we got 4 positives here, but in the sense, that's good to know. No riders have been testing positive, and you may see a difference if another staff member comes up, that rules get changed. All right, possibly. Tour de France media. Thought I'd mention something on this real quick. Chris Horner, who does a former Vuelta winner, Tour de France rider, longtime number 13. I don't know. He does announcing for NBC, which I don't watch, even though I don't watch Flobikes either. Though I watch NBC, but I watch Andrew McCausson and Simon Gerrans do a really good job. And then when that tour, and then I flip over and see the NBC post race coverage with Horner, and he does it. Horner's well known for his strategy, and he just has a different way of thinking, I think, and it's pretty perceptive. But also discovered he has a little YouTube channel he just started up for the tour, and it's called The Butterfly Effect. So look at that. He does a 8-minute breakdown with a really crappy microphone, or maybe just using his cell phone. I don't know, but he has always a unique perspective on a lot of the stuff, and I I enjoy it. He's one of the better ones. So if you don't like this show, that's perfectly fine. Check his out, and maybe that's what you will see. Let's take a look at see who they've given us an update on who the riders that have been fined so far in this tour. See if there's any additional ones. I usually try to check this. Stage 3, and then they updated stage 6, Mahoric, sticky. So they're getting a lot of people for sticky bottles, irregular feed, sticky bottles. Should not ever be disposal outside the inappropriate. This is an interesting inappropriate behavior for Guy Nives for the usual startup nation is urinating in public during the race. Same with Niels Pullet. Stage 7, Hugh Carthy, shelter behind a vehicle following a vehicle's wake. 13 points deducted from the sprint classification, 1 point from the mountains. He wasn't going for any of that. Charlie Wiggles from EF shelter. And so he was doing that. So it's one of the riders, probably McCarthy, Hugh Carthy, he got taken out on that. Stage 9, Mark Hirsch, unauthorized refueling in the last 20K of the stage, 200 Swiss ranks, 20-second penalty on GC, and disposal outside the waste. Matteo Trenton, disposal of waste. A lot of disposal of waste. I know they have a zone that they're supposed to be using for that. And, come on, guys, it's not that big a deal. It's just, and someone like Matteo Trenton, you really can't just hold your stuff. You're not really caring about the weight going up a climb, are you? Possibly. Also, Egan Bernal, there was let me see if I can pull up the video. The actual picture of him. He got his haircut and it looks pretty atrocious. So he said, I cut my hair myself. I think I failed. Yeah. And if you were able to actually see the picture of it, you would agree so as well. He said, I cut my hair. Go back here. I cut my hair myself. I had some time yesterday. This is what happens when you're bored at the tour and you have a rest day. I cut my hair myself. To tell you the truth, I cut more on one side than the other. Bernal told French television after stage 10, admitting his ability to manage hairpins extends only to climbs and not coiffing. I had to shave everything at the end. I missed a bit. I think I failed. Yeah, he actually did. So let's take a look and see if we can project to everybody what this picture actually looks like. That's him with his head shaved on the sides. Not so good. Here's him after this stage. This looks horrible. He cut it up the side. Well, that's gone there. He cut it up the side, and with that, then he just shaved it all around the edge, and looks like he left the top wide open, so it's mopped over. This is the kind of problems you have in the tour when you have too much time on your hands, people, and you're not having a roommate because you're not sick. You're bubbling everything up. Adam Yates, he said he had some kind of parasite just before the Tour de France started. The British rider's first race since the lockdown was a Criterium du Dauphiné. Just a couple of weeks before the tour, he had some kind of parasite. There was a lot of vomiting. We think fountain water he drank, said the team, according to BBC Sport. It knocked him for 6. I don't know what that means. He had 10 days completely off the bike, then 2 or 3 weeks when he was certainly on restricted training, and that was right at the time when he was going to go hard in training. So look, he's lost a minute too. Maybe this is actually something that he's going to be okay with. Could be that once he recovers from this, he'll start to get into shape here, and he's already holding very well for having a parasite. There's a funny story. I think it was Ben Day. He's an Australian rider, rode for Jelly Belly. Is that who it was? One of those teams in the U.S., and he had won the Redlands Classic, maybe like 2010, somewhere around there. Then he goes out, and he wasn't feeling well, and he was supposed to schedule the next week to do Tour Gila. Before he goes out there, he said he went on a training ride, came home, he went to the bathroom, he had a dangler and ended up pulling on it. It was a 3-foot tapeworm that he'd had in his system for quite some time, but it broke off as he's trying to excommunicate it from his body. And he ended up, I don't think he finished the Tour Gila, but he was in a lot of problems. That you're pretty sick at that point. It's pretty nasty. So I don't know if it was to that extent what Adam Yates had. It sounds probably not, because he said they had some water and then they came upon him pretty quick. Once again, Ben Day wins the Redlands Classic with a parasite. So he was carrying an extra load, you can say. Upcoming stages. Tour de France, we've got stages 11 tomorrow through the weekend. And tomorrow's Wednesday. Châtillon-Plon to Poitiers, 167 kilometers. This is also what Jonathan Scriven was talking about. And then Chavannes to Suran, 218 kilometers rolling climbs, but not a GC day. Then we come into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So Friday, you end up the Puy Marie, 191 kilometers. That's got a 1, a cat 1, a cat 3, and then a 2, and then a 3, and then a 3, and then a 2, and then a 1. It looks pretty bad. And the last cat 1 climb actually has a time bonus on there. I think that one has a downhill. No, that has an uphill finish. The last cat 2 has a time bonus. So the cat 2 before the finishing cat 1 has a bit of a kick up there. You're getting a little bit of a time bonus. Saturday, then you have stage 14. That's got 5 climbs, a 4, a 2, a 3, and 2 4s. It's a day more for hyping the pressure for the following day than actually climbing itself. But it's just another day of added fatigue into the riders. Stage 15, Lyon to the Grand Colombier, 175 kilometers mountains. It's kind of flat to begin with. Then you got a cat 1, and then boom, you have a ore category climb up the Grand Colombier, which I think it's a pretty long climb. So maybe in the excess of double digits on the kilometers. So that will be interesting. And, you might start to see if there's any cracks in the Jumbo Visma train there, because I think that's kind of the hometown type of feel for Egan Bernal. Great climber, but he does like those long climbs, and he ends up doing quite well on those. So that'll be really interesting to see if that's going to come up. Ride of the week, we're going to get 2 riders here. Tadej Pogacar and Mark Hirsch, both deserving kind of on the same day. Pogacar really for the day before stage 8. He was exceptional going up the climb. Love to see his attacking style. He also was doing on stage 9. He's so young. I think he became the youngest rider, at least in modern history, for winning a stage in the Tour. Takes out 1993 winner Lance Armstrong. So 21 years of age or so. And then Mark Hirsch, he's a former U23 world champion. Second day on the move. Stage 2, he was also out there, and he got up there with Julian Alaphilippe and Adam Yates, 2 guys that have drifted off the GC platform since then. And Hirsch with a great move at the end and not almost getting the win, being able to follow kind of the problems that he had with excuse me, not the problems, but the situation he had with stage 2, and not really being able to recover quickly or quite like he had wanted to. But it was good to see that. And Adam Yates, Pogacar, also a rider of great. I think you're going to see amazing things coming out of him, because he's one that we've been able to see do really well. He did in the Vuelta last year. First of all, Tour of California year before, he ends up winning the final stage, not the final stage, but it was the one up to, I'm trying to remember the name of it, in Southern California, steep climb. And he, who was with him? It was Higuita that day. And you saw him kind of coming forward, and you're like, who is this guy? He's a young guy. And then he ends up doing the Vuelta. And last week of the Vuelta, more and more just kept getting better and better. And in the last week, dropping everybody. Lopez involved. The only person that was really staying with him ended up being the one and only Roglic. So after that, who knows what he can do? He's pretty excited about this. He's not cutting his own hair. I think he's primed to do just fine, and we should see some excitement out of him for the rest of the week. So I planned on pretty much pulling. Look, the Slovenians, you got the Colombians, all those on the top up there. There's a few French riders. I want to talk about that real quick, and then we'll be done here for the day. You have the overall. So first place is Roglic, Slovenia. Second place is Columbia, Bernal. Then you've got 2 French riders, Guillaume Martin and Romain Bardet. Romain Bardet said this is the best, the highest quality Tour field that he's had. And that's an interesting thing with COVID, right? You've got this COVID shutdown time. Guys, maybe they're better rested because they haven't been training so much. Some people are like, look, we need the training, the racing to get in shape. Somehow these guys are flying. They're putting up, Bardet said he's putting up numbers he's never done before. And yet everyone else is still doing. He's only 30 seconds off the lead. So that's pretty. Nairo Quintana, I've been very impressed with him. Colombia, though. Rigoberto Urán, very impressed with him being able to stay in there as well. Colombia. Tadej Pogacar, Slovenia. And then you have 2 oddballs here. We have Lopez at 9th. He's also from Colombia. And then Great Britain, Adam Yates, and Mikel Landa from Spain. So 2 French, 1 Great Britain, 1 Spanish, 1, 2, 3, 4 Colombians, 2 Slovenians. Where's the Americans? Sepp Kuss, where are you at for the Americans on this? All right, everybody. Thank you once again for joining us. That's episode 193. Look, we'll try to do this on Facebook until we get our YouTube channel back up and running. Appreciate it though. So share the show if you can out there. At least tell people where to find it, and look for us. Make any comments you want. We are really happy that we can at least try to provide a service for everyone here. So thanks everybody. Between Two Wheels Podcast, episode 193 in the books. Take care.